the elephant previously named privateequity.biz, is a secondary market platform for trading of shares of late-stage private companies. And I'll take that long sentence and dissect it. If you're a shareholder in a late-stage company, pre-IPO, unicorn, if, you know, just to give examples, and there are still private companies. We're talking about Uber, Airbnb, just to name a few. These companies are still private. They've created enormous value. You know, could be billions and tens of billions of dollars, and they're still private. They're not going public. And their shareholders, on one hand, are, you know, enjoying from a great increase in the value of their shares, but on the other hand, they have absolutely no liquidity for them. So these are the type of assets that we want to give access to sellers and to investors. And you know, if we're looking back 15, 20 years ago, this asset class was not available. It did not exist. The reasoning behind it is because there was no need for it. Secondary trading is an interim solution for once, you know, value is created until it's actually reaching liquidity, which is going public. 15 years ago, it just was not, it didn't happen because companies went either public, you know, after 3 to 5 years, or they failed and closed down. So there was no need because an investor came in, sat on an investor, and he understood that he's coming in for a period of 3 to 5 years. After the dot-com bubble bursted, okay, companies are no longer going public at, you know, $200, $300 million valuations after 3 to 5 years. You know, there's more available capital in the private market, so they don't have the need to go public in order to raise that substantial amount of money. On the other hand, regulation has tightened up on them, so they're less incentivized to take all these obligations on themselves. So they said, hey, we'll just, you know, stay private, create more and more value, and we'll go out public if and when it suits us on our terms. And what happened is that now you have more and more value created. You have 250 unicorns worth billions and tens of billions of dollars, and they're just not going public. They will eventually do it, but, you know, it will take them 12 years, 15 years, in some cases, even more than that. What happens is that, you know, the people that are holding their shares are locked. You have all these enormous value, which is being created more and more, but it's staying locked up for a longer period of time. The secondary market really is the solution, the interim solution for that period. And, you know, we're talking about we've been talking about crypto industry this morning, which, you know, is the biggest creation of value ever in mankind. But, you know, if you put things in perspective, take the secondary market. The secondary market has grown over this past decade by over 800%. Okay, because as we explained, more and more value is created and is staying locked for a longer time. The elephant is a platform that wants to provide these shareholders, and our special angle is the small shareholders, with access to liquidity, with access to investors that want to invest in this asset class, the pre-IPO asset class, meaning you come in at the pre-IPO market, later stage company, and you want to ride it out till the IPO a couple years later. So, you know, that's, you know, and the secondary market has grown from $4 billion 12 years ago to almost $60 billion this past year, okay? Again, the reasoning is understood, the need is just growing, and the market, the secondary market, is growing on a regular basis. Now, what we've understood is that we want to provide access to these shares, so understand where the need is coming from for all the shareholders. We also want to open up this investment class to more and more investors, because customarily you have, you know, secondary funds that are interested in investing in this you know, class of investments, but, you know, they're looking at big blocks. They're looking at, you know, $5–10 million. They have full due diligence, you know, and cooperation from the company. You know, but if you're a small shareholder holding $1 million, these companies are not going to cooperate with you and provide information. So, which is another barrier for you to selling your shares. what we want to do is we want to provide access to these shares in small stakes, you know, starting at $20,000, $50,000, $100,000. Now your risk profile and, you know, investing in these high profile companies has changed because you want to invest in them. And how do we do that? We want to open up this investment class to more and more accredited investors, only accredited investors, because we have to abide by security laws, and we're obviously not trying to play around with these shares. But how many accredited investors want to invest in these shares, and they can't do it because, like we said, there's, you know, big blocks going between, you know, a fund that was holding it, created value, and now they're selling it to another secondary fund. You don't have access at, you know, $100,000 in these companies. That's what we at the Elephant want to provide. We're giving access to sell your shares to small shareholders, and we have our innovative ways of doing it. And we're also giving access to investors to invest in these shares by basically setting up a special purpose vehicle for each one of these investment classes.